Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria. I am one of the estate planning attorneys for the Koppenbarger Law Firm. I have been with the firm for just over 3.5 years now, coming up on 4 very quickly, and I primarily work up in our Northern California offices. And then joining us today is Pamela Noyce of Noyce Insurance Agency, and you're going to get to hear from her quite a bit today on some of the things to be definitely thinking about as we come into the holidays. She is also up here in Northern California with me, but I believe she is able to help pretty much anyone, not only in the state of California, but she has quite a few other states under her belt as well. With that being said, one of the main focuses today is how to prepare and protect yourself as we're coming into the holidays and then through the holidays. We, unfortunately, while the holidays are fantastic for many people, see quite a bit go wrong during the holidays. And so we want to make sure that we set you up in the best way to be protected and be able to really experience the joyful part of the holiday, not the catastrophe that can sometimes occur. So some of those catastrophes that we do unfortunately see include car accidents, there's crime. Of course, a lot of people are decorating, so they're climbing up on ladders. And if they've had some of that eggnog, that may not be a great combination. And so while we make light of some of these because it seems funny, the reality is, though, they do really see in the emergency room quite a lot of accidents come out of car accidents, literally, but also decorating accidents. And so it is really important to not only make sure your home, your car, and yourself are protected, but to make sure on the estate planning side that you and your family and your assets are protected as well. A few other things that we see include some family squabbles. At the holidays, you are surrounded by your family, and a lot of times you're seeing family in back-to-back events, and as much as we may love our family, they are family. And so family squabbles can break out, unfortunately, and there can be issues that arise that we can then actually address on the estate planning side. But we also see people with Black Friday and holiday shopping in general start getting aggressive towards each other and having literal rage and fights break out. And so again, these are things that we want to make sure, while we really hope everyone has a wonderful and safe holiday season, that you, and again, all of your assets, the things you care about, the things that you want to protect, really are protected and provided for. One of the other sad things that we do see is after the holiday season, we do see a lot of loved ones who essentially held on for the holidays pass away. And so from the estate planning side of things, we're also able to help clients deal with the outcome of someone passing. And so as we're going through today, it is going to be quite a bit of information, but we're going to try to break it down for you in the most understandable of ways and figure out what you ultimately should be prioritizing, again, to make sure that protection really is there for you. So with that being said, I'm going to actually turn it over to Pamela, and she's going to start covering the insurance side of things.
Thank you, Victoria, for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. So today I want to talk to you guys about how to protect yourself and your assets during this holiday season. So the first thing is auto insurance, and it's important, especially during the holiday season, because it's peak travel times and the holiday season is just around the corner. So there are a couple things to look at on your auto insurance to make sure that you have the right amount of coverage for this holiday season. The first thing to look at on your auto insurance is your coverage and your coverage limits. So if you have full coverage, this means you carry comprehensive and collision coverage on your vehicle, and liability coverage, which is bodily and property damage on other vehicles and their drivers and passengers. Secondly, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage covers bodily injuries to you and your passengers and property damage if the third-party driver that was at fault is either underinsured or uninsured. Other auto coverages that you may consider during the travel time is tow service, which allows you to get car towed if it breaks down. Also other services, which includes if you get locked out of your auto or vehicle, And then also if you get a flat tire. Medical coverage is also included in your auto coverage, and this gives you extra coverage on top of your personal health insurance. And then lastly, rental coverage also is covered under your car auto insurance, and this covers you to get a rental car if your car is in the shop due to a claim, so you're still able to travel during the busy holiday season. So in California, the minimum liability limits to drive and operate a vehicle is $15,000 for bodily injury per person, $30,000 bodily injury per accident, and $5,000 property damage. This is the minimum limit, which means if you have these limits, most likely you'll be grossly underinsured. So why is having the right auto insurance important? So firstly, if you don't have the correct liability limits, you could be paying out of pocket hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could have had your insurance pay for. This also saves you the headache and hefty legal fees and lengthy court filings if you don't have the proper insurance. Secondly, on the road, 1 out of 3 drivers in California are either underinsured or uninsured, which means that if you're going to be driving and you don't have the proper underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, you may be paying out of pocket for damages that you're not even at fault for. And then lastly, financial security is especially important during the holiday season, as many families have increased spending budgets during these months. So make sure your deductible limits are appropriate for your household budget. Deductible amounts are the amounts that the insured pays in the event of a collision or comprehensive claim before the insurance paid damage on their vehicle. So, for example, if your deductible amount is $5,000 and you don't have that money in your savings or emergency funds, that means you're not able to file a claim and fix your car during the busy holiday season. All right, so the next insurance line that needs to be reviewed is also your home insurance. Home insurance covers your house in the event of certain perils to occur, such as fire, rainstorm, snow, and even general liability claims. The first part of your home insurance is coverage A, also known as dwelling coverage, and this will cover loss to your home. The appropriate amount of coverage for this line should be the replacement cost amount to rebuild your home. This is not to be confused with the market value of your house. Coverage B covers the not attached structures of your house. This could be detached structure such as studio, shed, and swimming pool. Coverage C covers personal belongings at your home or away with you on your vacation. So personal properties are normally covered under named peril basis and often subject to limitations and exclusions. So check your insurance to see if your belongings will be covered during the holiday travels. Coverage D handles the loss of use, which is cost of living expense while your home is being repaired due to a claim. And the coverage amount applies to home that is also unusable. And lastly, coverage E covers you if you are legally responsible for causing damage or physical injury. This coverage is often overlooked on people's home insurance because most homeowners want to protect their home and their belongings. However, general liability is just as important, especially during the holiday season when parties and gatherings will be taking place. This can cover bodily injury claims that may occur in your home. Other than having the proper coverage and limits on your home insurance, there are other ways to protect your home during the winter months as well. So the first thing is you can inspect your roof and gutters if you live in areas where it snows or freezes, Tahoe, Yosemite, Truckee, and even some parts of the South Bay area. It's recommended to clear snow off your roof to avoid ice forming and melting under the shingles. And then also the gutter, you should always check that to make sure it's cleared and make sure that there's proper water flow for your gutter system. Secondly, inspect your trees near your house. Inspect those that are dying or defective. If there are any trees that are of a concern, make sure you trim them away, remove them, or clear them out before the holiday season. And most insurance will cover burst pipes, but some insurance will not protect you if you fail to properly protect your home against harsh winter elements before going on vacation. So be sure to insulate your pipes, disconnect your outdoor hose and sprinkler system, and make sure you leave your house temperature at 65 degrees Fahrenheit when you're away on vacation. And then lastly, if you're having company over, make sure you avoid hazard in the house, such as making sure that there's no slippery driveways or walkways and any tripping hazard that may occur in your house that can cause bodily injury. An umbrella policy is actually another coverage I recommend to many of my households. This provides higher limits to give you extra liability coverage to pay for injuries and damages others sustained due to your negligence for all your underlying policies. So umbrella coverage is relatively inexpensive, especially when compared to the amount of coverage you receive. They start at anywhere worth of $1 million worth of coverage and can go up to $10 million in coverage. Umbrella insurance also covers underlying policies such as your home, auto, rental properties, RVs, and boats. This coverage applies to you and other living in your household, including spouses, children, and also others in your care. And I often recommend this policy because the more asset you have, the more protection you need. And the umbrella coverage offers that extra layer of security, especially since the majority of umbrella claims involve auto losses. So umbrella coverage will give you the peace of mind while you're on the road visiting family and friends during the holiday season. So other lines to consider that are equally important and that need to be protected are your rental properties or investment properties such as Airbnbs, VRBOs, and seasonal rentals, recreational vehicles, boats, and motorhomes. Personal article policies. This policy covers high value items such as jewelry, fine art, expensive cameras, etc. And then all the holiday gifts that you're going to be receiving or buying, make sure they're properly protected. Earthquake and flood insurance is not one of the perils that's covered with your regular home insurance, so make sure that you get proper coverage for that. And lastly, health and life insurance. So to sum it all up, insurance is a financial safety net, helping you and your loved ones recover after something bad or unexpected happen. So get the proper insurance today to make sure that you have a safe and peaceful holiday, knowing that your family is protected from the unexpected.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pamela. And again, I know that a lot of this we're covering quite a bit and it is general, but if you have any questions specifically about your policy, again, you can reach out to her directly. And if you just have general questions, please feel free to put them in our chat. But now we are going to turn over to the estate planning side. And a lot of what Pamela said is directly in line with why we do what we do. And the idea is ensuring you are protected before you actually need that protection. We want you to be set up in a way where before, like I said, you ever even need the protection, you have the peace of mind that it is there if, or for some people, when they end up needing it. So again, as you're coming into the holidays, there's two things to really think about here. One is, do you have the appropriate documents in place to protect you if something goes wrong to you specifically? But also, this is often a great time for people to talk to their loved ones who may have been putting off estate planning. And it may give you the opportunity to maybe not badger them, but discuss with them, are they properly protected as we go into the holidays as well? So for some of you, this is going to be a recap of an estate plan, but for others, this may be the first time that you're hearing about estate planning. So essentially, we're going to go through the documents that pretty much everyone needs. There's a few that every adult needs, and then there are a few that adults get to choose between. The first one that we're going to go over is your Advanced Healthcare Directive. Now, if you are over the age of 18, this is something you absolutely need to have in place. And like we've been talking about, unfortunately, during the holidays, accidents happen. The healthcare directive is there so that if you can no longer verbally tell the doctor who is able to make decisions, medical decisions on your behalf, you have it in writing. Because back in 2004, the law changed to say that nobody has an automatic right to make your medical decisions if you have not given that permission either verbally or in writing. So some of what we unfortunately see during the holidays is those accidents we talked about in the beginning, but it can also be you went on a ski vacation and during it you crashed and now you're having to be rushed into surgery. Well, what happens if in the middle of a surgery, the doctor needs to make a decision? You need to have somebody appointed so that they can make that decision on your behalf. Because you are in a vulnerable state, this is something that we really want to make sure you are comfortable with and that the person that should be in charge is the one named. So if you do not have this document, this is absolutely the time to come in and get one established. But if you do have the document, I recommend that if you haven't had it reviewed in the last couple of years, that we at least do a review of it to make sure that the decisions that you've identified are still the same and to make sure the people you've named are still who you would want to act on your behalf. Especially during COVID, we saw a lot of people change the who portion of this document because people moved away. Maybe you got more distant, maybe they actually passed away. And so a lot of documents ended up being out of date. And so again, with this being a point that you are vulnerable, it's vitally important to make sure it is kept current so that you are properly protected. Now, the other side of things is the financial component. So what happens if, again, you're in a ski accident that takes you out of commission for even just a week? Well, in that week, bills may come due, things may need to be paid for. It may be as simple as you want to make sure presents are still purchased ahead of time for the holidays. You want your financial life to continue. Well, your durable power of attorney or financial power of attorney is there so that you can give someone else the authority to act on your behalf when it comes to your financial matters. Again, if you are over 18, this is something we recommend you have in place. Our hope is that you never need these documents, that you live happy, healthy lives and pass very peacefully at the end of a long life. But the unfortunate reality is a lot of people don't have that perfect, healthy, happy life for every year that they're here. And so with the financial power of attorney, this is something that is so important to have at the point that you need it. A perfect example of this was actually my grandma when she was in the hospital a couple of years ago. She was still competent, which meant she could still make decisions, but she was stuck in the ICU and she had needles in her arms. And so frankly, couldn't even sign checks. And she was foggy enough that she didn't always remember what needed to be done and when. And so I had the power of attorney for her where I could make sure her bills were paid, which included things like keeping lights on in her home, making sure her cell phone bill was paid, just basic things that then she did not have to even give a second thought to and could just be taken care of for her. So this is definitely something that, again, if you do not have this in place, I would not hesitate to have it established because at worst, it just sits there and isn't used. But at best, it is there to protect you and your finances when you need it most. All right. One of the other issues is if you do not have these documents where you've actually named who would take care of you or who would take care of the money, is that if that needed to be decided, a court now has to make that decision. A court basically appoints the person who you otherwise would have named. The problem, though, is the court oversees the decisions and ultimately they get to decide who is appointed, which may mean it is not the person you would have wanted. So in some cases, people don't want their spouse or their children or the intuitive person to be the one that is named. But if a court has to name that person, they have a list that they work off of. And so they're looking at your spouse. Do you have children? Who's essentially the next in line to take care of you? And so this is where we really want to make sure that control is still in your hands, even if you cannot in real time make those decisions anymore. Now, the next part of estate planning is, I would say, the which one do you need portion. The two documents we just went over, everyone needs if they are over 18. But now it's, do I need a will or do I need a trust? This is dealing with how to protect your assets and loved ones after you've actually passed away. So I mentioned at the very beginning that unfortunately during the holiday season, we see, or actually post-holiday season, we see a lot of older loved ones essentially let go once the holidays are done. This is a sad reality that we have seen time and time again, year after year. And so while we never want families to have to experience that, the reality is it does happen. And so we want to ensure that no matter if it happens or not, that if it does, you and your assets and your loved ones will be protected and your wishes will be carried out. So a lot of people don't know if they need a will or a trust. And frankly, Hollywood has not helped that because often you hear about will readings and executing a will. But for a lot of people, a will is actually not appropriate. So you need a will if you are someone who owns no real estate, if you have an estate of less than that $184,000 number, and or you are the parent of a minor child. Now, if you have a minor child, you absolutely need a will because this is where you name the guardians of those minor children. But if you own a piece of property or you have more than that $184,000 number, you would be subject to something, or your estate would be subject to something called probate when you pass away. Probate is essentially a court process that settles up the accounts of the decedent and any debts that are owed to the estate or were owed by the decedent. And ultimately, probate's job is to transfer title to who would be your heirs or your beneficiaries. Now, probate is a court process, like I said, and so similar to the conservatorship side, the problem is now it is a legal process that follows the state and court's rules. So the control is not with the family, and it's not with necessarily what you would have wanted. The other big issue is that probate is expensive. Not only is it time consuming, but it costs 5 to 7% of the gross estate, which means if you own a home that gross is worth $1 million, that they are going to put that percentage on the full million, even if you only have equity of 200,000. So it is a very expensive process, and again, very time consuming. If you've ever dealt with the courts or frankly any government entity, they're not normally known for expedience and efficiency. And probate is no different. Especially since COVID, we are seeing probates take anywhere from 2 up to even 5 years, which means after someone has passed away, you're stuck dealing with the court and going over the logistics and legal for years past when someone has gone. And that is not something we want to see anybody subject to. So that's where we start talking about having a trust. So a trust is there to ensure that you, as what's called the settlor, have set terms ahead of time that says who would manage and distribute things if you no longer could, and ultimately who is going to get the benefit of your assets. We here at Kopp & Barger absolutely believe that every single one of our clients has a legacy, and that legacy is going to look different from person to person. But ultimately, we want to make sure that whatever your priorities are, whoever you want to take care of, and whatever assets you have acquired are properly provided for and again, protected. So when we're going through, we're looking at who should be the person that serves in the trustee role if you're no longer with us. That means who would actually manage things on your behalf. And it's right there in the word. This is someone that you want to make sure you trust. You trust that they will follow the terms you have set out and not do something that they would prefer, but really do follow and honor your wishes. And then with beneficiaries, this is one of the largest conversations because everybody has a different beneficiary. And by that, I mean, some beneficiaries are very easy. It's your children, they're responsible. You just trust that they'll inherit the money and use it wisely. But for many of us, it's not that simple. We want maybe charities involved, or maybe our beneficiaries aren't all responsible. And so we need different protections around their inheritance that maybe the others don't need. Maybe we want a combination of charities, friends, family, our church, other organizations, and it gets more complicated when you start factoring all of those things in. But ultimately, what it comes down to is this is a document that you get to set the terms for. It is customized to you. It is your plan. And so whatever your wishes are, so long as they are legal, we can make sure get captured in this trust. Now, one of the biggest reasons we are so focused on trust planning is the fact that it allows you to avoid probate, but it also allows your privacy to be protected. If something has to go through probate court, it means that it now becomes public. And so I don't know many people who wanted something private during their life that would now be okay with things becoming public once they're gone. Most of us want to maintain the privacy that we have had, whether we're here or not. The other piece, though, is that within a trust, you're able to do significantly more tax planning. That means for a lot of our clients who are concerned about estate taxes, about capital gains taxes, property taxes, all of these taxes that we are subject to, they want to make sure they are eliminated or at least reduced to the minimum number possible. And your trust allows you a lot of flexibility to do that. So for many clients, this is a big part of what we discuss, because again, we don't want your legacy and what you've built taken by unnecessary taxes. You have frankly paid enough of those during your lifetime, I am willing to bet. Now, the other piece is all of these documents allow you to avoid that court supervised conservatorship. So again, keeping your control at the forefront of what we do and ensuring your wishes are the ones carried out. But the only downside to a trust is it only protects what it owns. So what that means is when you set up a trust, there are certain assets that need to actually be placed into the name of the trust. Generally speaking, this includes any real property, checking accounts, savings accounts, and non-retirement investment accounts. But this can very much be a case-by-case basis. And so if you have a trust and aren't sure if your assets are properly in it, definitely come and talk to us. Or as we set up a trust for you for the first time, know that this is a very large part of the conversation because it's such an important part of the conversation. But we also know that things happen and people forget to do things and life goes on and you're not thinking about the conversation we had when you first set up your estate plan. So how do we ensure that if you forget to put things in the trust, that they are still protected? We do that with what is called a pour over will. This is also known as a safety net document. It essentially says that if you forget to put something into the trust that would then otherwise be subject to probate, it tells the court in only one hearing to give it back to the trust. So we still do need some court involvement, but it keeps the court's control to a minimum and ultimately makes sure that your wishes are, again, the ones that are carried out. So truly, everything that we do here is focused on protecting you, not only from outside predators, but sometimes even from yourself. Again, life happens, things go on, and we forget to do stuff. So we want to make sure that wherever we are able to cover you, to give you and your family peace of mind, that we are able to do so. Now, if you already have an estate plan, it's really important to come in every 3 to 5 years to have it reviewed. The reason we recommend 3 to 5 years is because there are numerous legal changes that can occur, but also life changes. So even though you may have already established an estate plan, it doesn't mean that it is stagnant. Your estate plan is essentially following your life cycle. So if you started with us and you had minor children and now they're adults, or your adult children are all grown and now you're getting into more end of life concerns, we need to make sure that your estate plan addresses the current concerns while predicting more into the immediate future that you're now facing. Some of the issues that we have seen are clients who don't come in to ever review their estate plan again. They pass away and something is out of date or causes contention because it isn't the current rule or it isn't the current intention that you had. And so this is where we can see, unfortunately, fighting or the need even for litigation, because we're trying to sort through things that could have been avoided had we kept that plan up to date. So absolutely make sure that even if you don't need a change every 3 to 5 years, you have it reviewed so that, again, you have peace of mind that you are still covered and you don't need to think about it for another 3 to 5 years. So we covered quite a bit, and I know this was actually a fairly short amount of time, but a lot of times when it comes to insurance and your estate plan, the reality is it's very personal to you and what your situation is. And so if you have any questions that pertain to you specifically, absolutely come in and make an appointment. We want to make sure that, again, going into the holiday season, you and your loved ones are protected, but even well beyond the holiday season, that you stay protected. If you are already someone who works with us, or if you're wondering who could benefit from either our or Pamela's services, it's essentially anybody. We work with businesses, individuals, interest groups on many, many levels. And the reality is everyone needs some form of protection. What that protection looks like will vary from person to person, but we want to make sure that you have a customized plan set to protect you. So why should you work with us? That's always one of the biggest questions, is of all the attorneys and all the insurance agents, why should we work with you? And the reality is, part of why you can work with us so well is the fact that we work together. And by that, I mean for professionals working together. If you have an estate planner or an insurance agent who does not understand the importance of overall protection, not just in the area they are focused on, you are very likely going to be missing out on something. One thing we always make sure of with our clients is that not only are we ensuring the estate planning side is addressed, but what are the other needs that need to be looked at? For example, your insurance, maybe it's a financial advisor, maybe you have tax questions, maybe you threw your back out hanging lights and you need a good chiropractor. It is so important to make sure that whoever you are working with really has a great network behind them to ensure that rather than you having to go hunt and continue to vet people, you have a trusted person who can do that legwork for you. So again, having people who know that it's important to work together is one of the best points of working with both Cope & Barger and Noyce Insurance. So we are absolutely here to help. Here is the contact information that I had mentioned at the very beginning. I'm actually going to have Pamela come back, and I have a few questions for her that I know she's taught me over the years and I believe is really going to benefit you. So Pamela, if you can hop on. Perfect. One of the questions you had answered for me quite a while ago is, do you need a license to get car insurance?
So in order to drive in California, you don't need a driver's license per se. So I work with different carriers that allows you to drive, especially during the pandemic when people were not able to renew their license due to the DMV being closed. A lot of people still had to drive during that time. So I have carriers that will allow you to have insurance even though you don't have a driver's license.
Perfect. All right. Now, one of the other things is obviously there's a lot to consider when it comes to insurance, but if you don't have a whole lot of time, especially if you're trying to do things before the holidays, what is the most important thing to consider or the best insurance to look at if you are limited?
Sure. So that's a great question. And I think that based off of the actual claims that are filed, you're more likely to get an auto claim than a home insurance. So with auto, most people get an accident every 6 years or file a claim every 6 years. So if you were to look at one policy, definitely the auto insurance would be my bet. Obviously, it's recommended to look at your whole package because everything affects you and your household. But if you're in a time crunch, auto insurance is my recommended policy.
Okay, perfect. And then I saw that we had a question earlier regarding auto insurance. So the question was, would we need auto insurance if we leave the auto, I'm assuming parked in another location of the state because we will be on vacation for 2 months? So do you need auto insurance if the car is just essentially going to be parked?
Yes. So I answered that question, but to explain it again, essentially, if it's non operational for a long period of time, you can also file it as non operational with your auto insurance, and that'll save you some savings on your premium. However, if it's non operational, it will not have insurance. So it's not recommended to drive that vehicle or move that vehicle at all during that time.
So if it's going to be used at all, you need insurance of some kind on it, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think that was it from the questions, so thank you. Now I'm going to quickly turn and I'll go back to the contact page to what to bring if you do set up a consultation with Kopenbarger, and then what to bring and what to do if you want a consultation with Pamela. So if you want a consultation with us, which by the way, for the Kopenbarger side, it's a free consultation for attending and watching this video today, but we would need any existing estate planning documents to make sure that we see what you already have and to ensure that we're really working and updating what you will need. We send out a confidential data questionnaire that allows us to get a really good understanding of where the priorities are going to be and what things we need to focus on. So if you're able to complete that to the best of your abilities, we really appreciate it. And of course, any questions that you have. That's probably the most important thing that people bring are the questions that they need answered. So absolutely list those out and make sure to come in with them. And then for Pamela, if you have existing insurance policies, it's good to provide her with those to make sure, again, she knows what do you need more of, less of, what is going to really suit what your needs are, and of course, the questions that you have. So we are here to help you. Hopefully you found this educational today and helpful. We hope you have a very safe and happy holiday season, whatever that looks like for you, and just let us know how we can be of assistance. Thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to working with you.